Καλησπέρα σας. Good evening. Welcome to Faces. Today we have two new faces for you, and we are going to talk about a book called Lap of the Gods, written by Jill Dudley. She's with us tonight. But to help me go through all this, I have to welcome my friend, Mr. Michael James. Good evening, Michael.
Good evening.
Welcome
Not
to...
a stranger to this show.
No. I mean, we are every day together, actually, you know, during the morning show on
Sounds
LGR.
very sweet, Vasily.
Yes, you are. Yes, I mean, after you get up and I get up and we get dressed and all this kind of thing. You know what I mean? This is what I mean, together. So we have Jill with us today, and we're going to talk about her book, all right? And I want to find out few things about her. If you don't mind, before I let my friend Michael go ahead with his questions, would you like to give us a little bit of information about yourself? I mean, where do you live and how you start writing?
I started writing when I first got married because I thought writing a play would be very easy, just dialogue, and I would make some money.
Uh-huh.
And
most important is the money, yes?
everything was money, of course. And so I sat down, read plays, and I wrote my first play, Matilda, which was about a dog and a couple getting married and all that sort of thing, and the problems with the dog in a flat. And I had beginner's luck, and it was put on for a week at the Leatherhead Repertory Company, and ran very successfully with a review in the Times, this up-and-coming playwright. And I made £6.
£6 is good money.
£6 for the week.
Yes.
I didn't see it myself because at the time I was in Iraq with my husband. And so I thought I was made, you know, and I wrote on more plays, one after the other. And they didn't quite match up to what people were expecting. And so that was the end of that. Somebody said, write radio plays, that's much easier. So I wrote radio plays, and there was always something the matter with each play. Eventually they said, oh, well, I think it's time you had one put on, so we'll put this one on. And it was a comedy, and I thought it was very successful. I was very pleased with it. Big roll of drums, you know, all the other plays would be accepted, but oh no, they were all rejected, one after the other. Eventually I stormed up to the head of the BBC and I said, if you don't accept this next play, that's the end of it. I'll never write another play again. This was 20 years on, you know, I'd made £6 and
That was a good...
You were already wealthy at this time.
For those years, it was good money. But how the book came about? I mean, what was the idea of writing a book?
I then wrote short stories just for myself, for my amusement, and sent one to the short story BBC Radio 4, and it was accepted. And the next one was accepted, and the third one was accepted, and that was good. And they were all repeated as the best ones of the year. And so I thought, yeah, I'm made.
Quite a leap of faith, though, Jill. You were a dairy farmer's wife at the time, weren't you?
I was a dairy farmer's wife, and my dear husband knew that if I didn't write, I'd go absolutely mad with all these cows. And he knew every morning I wrote, and only if there was an emergency and the cows had got out, or there was one that was calving, could he interrupt me. So he was very good and very understanding.
So you were an independent woman before it was fashionable?
No, I was a married woman with an understanding husband.
Lovely way of putting it.
Do you have children, Jill?
I have 2 children, a son and a daughter.
And grandchildren, or?
No grandchildren.
No grandchildren.
No. I think if I had grandchildren, I wouldn't have time to be able to travel.
But tell us how the book, came about. How you start And why you start writing the book?
Well, as a dairy farmer's wife, I wanted to learn Greek.
Okay.
And I don't know quite why. I had been studying something and I saw little Greek passages and it annoyed me. I couldn't read it and understand.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said to my dear husband, I'd like to go and study Greek at Exeter University,
Mm-hmm.
evening courses.
Yes.
And being very kind and understanding, he said, yes, of course. So off I went every week. And there I met other enthusiasts about Greece. And we had a very good, rather temperamental teacher who was determined we should learn the grammar. So that was good. But they'd all been to Greece and I hadn't. And at the time, I was writing about what I knew, which was farming, and it was a satirical fantasy, which I called Mortals and Immortals. And in it I had Zeus, supreme god, and his wife Hera coming to Britain to see how much improved the country must be after 2,000 years of Christianity.
Yes. Comedy, it was a comedy
It was
idea.
a satirical fantasy and a true in parts memoir about the farmer and his wife.
Okay.
And the goddess Muk, who was looking down from a high hill, keeping an eye on these two favorites of hers. And anyway, the farmer and his wife weren't actually behaving terribly well, having a fling with, I don't know, the chap who was making the hay and all that sort of thing. And
Racy
so
stuff.
That was naughty and
it was a bit
naughty but nice.
yeah, naughty but
naughty
nice.
but nice. And
Okay.
the goddess Muk was very embarrassed by her two proteges with Lord Zeus looking on. And he assured them that it was quite normal. And anyway, never mind. That was why I wanted to go to Greece, to Mount Olympus, to see where Zeus and the
Was
gods
living,
had come
yes.
from.
This is where your association with Greece really started, on your first holiday. I think that was back in 1990.
Was it? Probably a long time ago. And traveling in Greece, I was taken with how the Orthodox Church has saints very similar, very many saints similar to the old Olympian gods, and that sort of somehow excited me. And so I wanted to write about that, which meant going back to Greece quite frequently.
Was that the inspiration for Greece Ye Gods?
Yes, yeah. So that's how Ye Gods. Somebody said, oh, well, you can get a publisher quite easily. First of all, write articles, and then you can say you've had articles published. So
Must have been successful though, Joe, because you went and did a sequel, didn't you? Ye Gods 2.
Yes, yeah. But the articles were fine. They might be taken or they might not, and it's all time consuming. And so then I wrote Ye Gods, which was, I don't know, 11 chapters, I think, about different parts of Greece. And the festivals. The early church had taken over some of the old festivals from pagan times. And the early Byzantine churches in Greece are absolutely so beautiful. And so one thing led to another. I climbed Mount Olympus with Harry. I had a streaming cold at the time, and I didn't like to tell Harry that because I knew he was longing for an excuse for not getting up that mountain. And anyway, we got up, and during the night, I tossed and turned and had nightmares because of all the precipices and things, and we still had a higher stretch to climb the following day, and I really didn't know if I could manage it. But luckily, Harry had a bad back by the next morning. He hated sleeping in strange beds. And so that was the best excuse ever.
Absolutely.
We had to get down.
Well, it's sensitive if you manage to get up there. They say the descent is always hard.
My cold was completely cured during the night.
Well, that's the Greek air for you, Jill.
They said that in, I think, the War of Independence, people would go up the mountain in order to get cured of their wounds or whatever. Yeah, it absolutely cured in the night.
Jill, I'd like to talk to you about your latest book, Lap of the Gods, where you visit 12 islands in the Aegean. Now, what interested me about the different interpretations and descriptions of the islands, where you met lots of fascinating people, beautiful artifacts and churches, was that there was a commonality between the islands, yet in a sense they were all different and individual.
They're all different and individual. I chose the islands that had somebody interesting like Pythagoras on Samos and Hippocrates on Kos, and then there was miracle working icons on Tinos and Paros. And then there was a monastery of John the Theologian on Patmos, which had been built over a temple of Artemis. And so often these things were imposed on the pagan gods. In fact, I think it took Christianity, it was about 300 years before Christianity was actually imposed on the Greek people by the Emperor Theodosius, something or another, Theodosius the first or the second. And so it wasn't something that they instantly believed, but they accepted because they had to.
Yeah.
What also fascinated me in your book was your curious relationship with religion. It seems, in a sense, ambivalent. On the one hand, you know, you're absorbed by the writings of ancient monuments, but you're not really much of a believer yourself, are you?
Not in the Christian doctrine. I don't like dogma. I don't like being told you have to believe with faith. But I am quite a religious person. But I believe in the forces of nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that everybody has a soul of, like Socrates, who believes that the soul went on, but you can't know if God exists or not, but he might. I don't believe in the God of the Old Testament because he was very dominating. But I believe everybody has an inner energy, and I think that's very important. And on Patmos we met this interesting young chap who'd examined all the religions and had come back to the Greek Orthodox, and he was saying that everybody had consciousness, and it was this consciousness that made them feel that there was a greater consciousness.
Is there something about the islands that lends itself perhaps to a philosophy where one believes they get nearer to these sort of answers because of the environment, because of the churches and because of the history?
I think you get this feeling on any sacred site where a temple was built, because the Greeks always built their temples somewhere where they knew there was a certain sacredness about it. And you feel that. And I've met people who all feel the same thing. Delphi, I think, is fantastic. That's in one of the Ye Gods books. And
do you think, can I ask you a question? Do you think if you're trying to find out more about religion, and you, you know, the more you discover, the more you get away of?
The nearest I think I've got is to Gnosticism, which the early Christian fathers ostracized and clamped on because they believed that the God of the Old Testament was a megalomaniac and that there was up above that a divine being, and that every person had a spark of that divine being within them. And that, I think, is what I can believe in.
Yeah.
But
It's a very difficult subject. I don't think we can get into a deep...
no.
Well, I think what comes out of
Yes.
Jill's books is this combination of
Yes.
her observations of religion and how it originated and the places where she went
Yes.
to see.
You know, Michael, when you read for me earlier on, you know, a piece of, you know, the book, like, you know, about rods, I thought.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I think this is interesting. I mean, it's good if you
Well,
read.
it brings alive
Yes.
the writings
Yes.
of Jill, and of course her love, not only of the interest of finding out answers to certain religious issues, but of the places themselves.
Yes.
I've highlighted a chapter in her book,
You want to read it for
Lap,
us?
Lap of the Gods, and I will
Yes.
read it for you.
Please, yes.
What it also does, it shows Jill's flamboyant style in terms of
Yes,
using
yes. The freedom, you mean? You know,
lang-
freedom
language,
of
well, language to-
thought and, you know,
yeah.
everything she does, you know, she's doing it. It doesn't matter who's against or whatever.
She makes simple prose,
Yes.
create an image for you, even if you haven't been to that country.
Exactly.
And she writes, Rhodes, an island of sea and sunshine. When Zeus was dividing up the earth amongst his family, the sun god Ilios was unwittingly left out. She goes on, when he found he'd been overlooked, Ilios complained to Zeus, who immediately awarded him an island which had just emerged out of the deep. This was the beautiful, flower-bedecked island of Rhodes. In those ancient times, Ilios had been regarded as a charioteer with a team of fiery horses who drew him across the heavens from east to west, heralded by Ios, the dawn. At night, he disappeared to the other side of the earth in a golden bowl floating on ocean who girdled the globe.
Oh,
Pretty passionate, flamboyant stuff, Jill. But it does capture the imagination. It's one thing to talk about the islands, it's one thing to go there, but to bring them alive through words is special. And I think you've certainly done that. And anybody that reads the book and they have an interest for this kind of thing will feel that.
Mm.
When did this book came out? I mean, how long ago?
April.
April.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question is, when you wrote your first comedy, you managed to make £6. What's happened with this one here?
Well, maybe sort of 500 so far.
That's good. That's
I mean,
good.
it's a start.
And you selling it? Where can anyone find it? I mean, any bookshop?
It can be got from any bookshop. They will have to probably get it from the distributors.
Okay.
But Stanford Travel has it in London, and
it's cheap actually. It's only £7.99, isn't it?
£7.99.
Yes.
And you can get it on Amazon, which of course bookshops don't like. And you can get it from the library, for which I get 6p every time somebody borrows it. And
If
adds
they
up.
borrow it and read it, you
It's
get
like a royalty, I guess,
six
yeah.
pence.
I get 6p.
Yeah.
It's good,
Yes.
you know. Yeah, it's good.
I think
I
it's
mean-
gone up. It might be
2.5 new pence in new money, isn't it? Or something like that.
So, because we have a little bit of time left, we're running out of time all the time. This is the biggest problem we face. Do you have any website? You want to give it to us. So
Yes,
if
my
anyone wanted to
website
find out
is
more about it.
info@orpingtonpublishers.co.uk.
Beautiful. Michael, do you have any other questions?
You have another book on the horizon, I understand.
Yes, it's going to be called Divine Wills and Trojan Heroes. And I've just come back from Troy, where I spent 10 days and went up Mount Ida, where Zeus looked down on the war that was raging between the Greeks and the Trojans.
You met him?
No, but I saw the crest of the mountain called Gargara.
All right.
So I've started writing that.
No danger of you slowing down then, Jill?
No, I don't lie down. I sit up and work, starting at 8:30 every morning.
That's good. Which is the best time to write? You know, is it morning, evenings?
8:30 to 1.
8:30 in the morning, yeah?
Yeah, and luckily we don't have a farm anymore, so I'm not called out suddenly to chase a cow. And Cos, I haven't mentioned Cos, but Cos, where Hippocrates came from, that was a fantastic sanctuary site, and you really feel it's therapeutic. And Hippocrates was descended from a long line of priest-physicians, and called Asclepiads, and they worshipped Asclepius, the god of healing. And it was Hippocrates who first said, no, it's science, we have to, and it's not the anger of the gods that's caused somebody's illness. And he was a great believer in the environment, and how diet and weather and everything affected somebody's health. So he was the first psychologist.
Good.
That's close to our hearts here, isn't it?
Yes.
Diet,
yes.
health and environment here at Hellenic TV.
Exactly.
Psychology coming from the Greek word psyche, the spirit.
Yes.
And ology, which I'm not quite sure, like philosophy.
Yes, it is, yes. So, okay, in this case, because it's only a little bit of time left, I have to say a big thank you to you for coming here and remind us about the gods and make us wanted to go and visit those places.
Good.
Yes, because,
Good.
yes.
And you get the sun and the sea.
Exactly.
Thrown in as a bonus.
Yes, exactly.
And I wish you all the best with the book. I'm sure it's going to go well and all this kind of thing. And I wish you all the best with the new book. And when you have it ready, you come and talk to us about it.
She must come in again, Vasily.
Definitely, yes, definitely. And I have to thank my friend, Mr. Michael James, for being here. Do you want to read another piece of, or is that?
I think that piece
that piece covers everything, yes.
Everything that
okay.
she did.
All right. Okay. So, any other questions you have?
My one final question would be to you. And I guess people have asked you this many times, bearing in mind the amount of visits you've paid to Greece and the Greek islands. What's your most endearing memory of the islands?
Endearing memory of the islands, or what I did on the islands?
Both. One that just stands out for you.
What you did might be too much, and
I think
we need to have the time.
Riding the mule to see the sunset in Santorini, going up against Harry, who's my constant travelling companion, not always there, but in my mind.
But you say, the last time when we talked, you say you write in the book as he's still there, yeah?
Oh, he's still there.
Yeah, he's still there.
Always, yeah. And he'll be in Troy with me.
Yeah, he will be, yes.
Oh, yes.
That's good.
Yeah.
In your imagination, but you see him there, yes?
Yes.
Helping you to go ahead with everything
Absolutely.
you decide, yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And having a good tussle with me at the same time.
Yes, that certainly comes out in your book,
Yeah.
the husband and wife banter.
His idea of the last night on Santorini was to sit out on the hotel terrace and watch the sunset and eat scraps from the fridge that was left over. And I said, I really, really wanted to ride a mule. I really hadn't ridden a mule, and I was so impossible. He said, for heaven's sake, let's go and ride this wretched mule. And so off we went, found a mule trail coming up from the port and watched the sunset riding the mule. And then we had the most expensive meal that could possibly be imagined in a lovely little tavern at the very top of Santorini.
Beautiful.
And
That's in your book, actually, isn't it?
Yeah,
This
that
little
was
anecdote.
memorable.
Yes. Beautiful. Thank you, Jill. Thank you very much, and wish you all the best again.
Thank you.
Okay, and
Thank
thank you,
you,
Mike,
Jill.
Michael.
Thank
you very much.
Vasilis?
It's been nice to have you here again. You know what I mean?
It's
And,
always a
I'm
pleasure.
sure you're going to be coming in the future in my shows
Without
again.
doubt.
and-
You
yes.
won't be able to keep me away, Vasilis.
And Jill, you know, is going to be with us when she has her new book ready. I'm
I
sure
will.
about that. Okay. Somewhere here we have to say thank you very much for being with us. Good night, and we are going to be together again next Sunday, the same time, with a new face or faces. Till then, look after yourselves. Good night.